Test. Wait, something's not right. Test. Test. Test.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
Test.
Amen. That's good.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
All right.
Just go and walk.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody today?
Hey, everybody.
Is the volume good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it really?
Yes.
Sounds kind of quiet from here. No? Okay. Good. Volume's good. All right. I'll go with that. Okay. Okay. Hi for everybody who's tuning in. You're probably like, okay, why was the screen blank? Minor technical difficulties today.
That's all right.
Sometimes that's how it goes, right? But we're here.
That's right.
We're gonna get a word.
That's right.
Lord, all glory be to you, and for any shortcomings and failings, I take responsibility for the delivery of your word.
Yes, sir.
Good to see those who were able to make it today. I know we're missing a few, but
That's all right.
they might be traveling or not able to make it or not feeling well or anything like that, so we'll certainly keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Jesus came to the coast of Caesarea Philippi. He asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Some say thou John the Baptist, some Elias, others Jeremiah, or maybe one of the prophets." He says to them, "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah. Flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." So my title for today, and I know that some of you are going to get this immediately because you're going to realize what the date is. DDay, the gates of hell. All right. I don't know how many of you are students of history. You know that I am because I tend to mention this rather often. And obviously, my son has picked that up now too. Actually, when he got to the recruiters and they were starting to test him, if he could recognize ship silhouettes and stuff like that, to find out what he knew, he just banged them all off. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's a DDG, that's CVN." He's like, how do you know all this stuff? And he's like, "My dad pushed me." So yeah, he's actually at basic now. Obviously, we've heard nothing. He has no phones. That's got to be killing him. He has 3 cell phones, right? One of them he actually, sort of uses, because if you call him, he maybe a couple of days before he answers, Kids, right? But the other 2, he just plays games on. They have no self-service at all. They're just portable toys. Well, they took all of them away. He left them home because he knew they would get stripped anyway, so he left them home. So he's probably like having phone withdrawal right now, right? The DTs. So I can imagine what that's going like. We're hoping to get some letters from him soon. But like I said, if you're a student of history, you know that today just happened to fall on a Sunday. It is the 6th of June. And you're like, okay, yeah, all right. Comes before the 7th and after the 5th. That's true. And most years, that's probably pretty much mostly all that was going on between the 5th and the 7th. Except in 1944. Y'all know, of course, about World War II. I mean, that's everybody knows at least something about that, right? Because it really was a world war. The only continent that I'm aware of that never had combat troops was Antarctica. We fought over every single continent because we were fighting 2 fronts. We had Nazis on one side, and we had the Japanese on the other. And then, of course, they were hooked up with other countries. They called their side the Axis. They had this group, right? And then we had the Allies. So it went really good for them for a while. right? You all know about Pearl Harbor and stuff. We got surprised. Our ships got bombed. A lot of men died. Very, very sad. But one of their commanding, very high-ranking admiral commanding officers warned them before they did this. They said, I lived in America in the 1930s. I studied at Harvard. I know the Americans. They're not the weak people. Exactly.
Ishido Yamamoto.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna massacre his first name. But anyway, yes, his last name. We'll go with Admiral Yamamoto. Yes, and no, the Yamato was not named after him. They sound similar. But that was a battleship. That was another story. He warned them, if you do this, you're going to have a little more than a year that you'll probably be able to run around all crazy, because we've been preparing for this war. The United States really hasn't. We were on a very anti-war footing at that point. Our fleet had been pulled down. Our men were not superbly trained. We were kind of getting, honestly, we were getting lazy. We really were. We had gotten to a point where, like, those crazy Europeans are at it again, because we went over there in World War I and lost a bunch of men. Well, they lost millions. I mean, that was crazy. That's a whole other story as well. And they said after that, no. They're going to build as much as they can. And they have factories you cannot imagine. Their country is vast, and it is. If you ever try driving across the United States, it takes a while. Most of Europe fits in Texas.
Yeah.
You actually take a map and overlay it, and it's kind of scary. Most of Europe will fit right in the one state of Texas. So he's telling them they have the resources, they have the machinery, they have the engineers, they have the people for a workforce. They will beat us if we do this. And obviously, everybody knows they went ahead and did it anyway. Now, of course, Hitler and his boys were hoping that we would stay out, because they had already conquered most of Europe by this point. And they were fighting Great Britain, which is one tiny little island off the coast of France. And they're like, well, how hard could this be? We stormed across everybody else, and we got this one tiny little island that don't want to give. Like, man, they're being real obstinate. We're going to flatten them. Well, we weren't like officially in the war, but we were sending them stuff. It was called Lend-Lease. We sent them ships, we sent them food, we sent them a lot of bullets and artillery, and we were helping them out even before we officially got started. And then we got into the war. So now you know where we're at. So this is December 1941. Okay, now we fast forward, we're at June 1944. So now, it's not going well for the Japanese. We beat them up real hard at Midway. Before that, they pretty much won everything they did. After that, they pretty much lost just about everything they did. So that was a real big flipping point for that. Europe was tough. We were fighting and fighting and fighting, pushing them back, and we finally get to the point. And this was actually in like late 43, they started thinking about this. So like, we're gonna have to cross the English Channel, which I forget exactly, it's like 13, 19 miles wide, something. It's not really big. People swim across it and set records. So it's not huge, right? But it is there. It's this big thing of water in between Great Britain. So, well, actually, I think I've got the map backwards. It's looking from your viewpoint. Great Britain's over here, and here's the coast of France and Belgium, right? Sure. So we're gonna go from this little tiny island here, we're gonna get a bunch of stuff together, we're gonna go across that little piece of water, and then we're gonna hit all of this. Well, Hitler may have been insane, and he had all kinds of wacky stuff, but he wasn't an idiot. He was pretty smart, actually, regardless of all the other terrible things, and I'm certainly not glorifying the guy, believe me, he was a complete psycho. But he realized that this was going to be problems. So they built what they called the Atlantic Wall. And this was no joke. Let me give you a few specs on the Atlantic Wall. It ran from the upper border of Spain all the way to the top of Norway. It was 1,670 miles long, and they built it in 3 years. They had a standardized construction book that had 600 different bunkers and casemates that they would just pick. Okay, let's see, this looks like it fits pretty good right here. They would just follow that plan and build it. Then they would put a section of wall, and then they'd build another bunker. So they would just flip through this build book. So they had standardized doors, ports, armor plate, everything that was made, they could just pick out of a catalog. Almost like you're, like I did with upgrading my truck parts. It's already pre-made if it's a Frontier. If you want to get an idea of that, if we built the Atlantic Wall here, it would stretch from Baltimore to Colorado Springs, Colorado. That's a big wall. They used 153 million cubic feet of concrete and 1.2 million tons of steel rebar and plate. And so they had this massive thing that they were hoping would keep us out of Europe. And the generals told Hitler, we're going to win or lose this in 24 hours. When they come, and they will, if we can't throw them back into the channel, if they get on the beach and they get moving forward, we're going to lose the war. It's going to take a while, and we'll keep fighting them, and we'll keep killing them, and they'll keep killing us, but it's pretty much going to be almost a foregone conclusion that we're going to lose. And that was basically it. That was the fact of the matter. So like I said, 153 million cubic feet of concrete we're facing off against. That's a pretty big gate, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
The gates of hell shall not prevail. And we know that the Nazis were not dumb, but extremely evil. They were into a lot of weird occult stuff. They were trying to wipe out the Jews. I mean, if nothing other than that, you know God's hand would be against it. That was his people. He's like, no. This is not going to fly. Not going to fly. So, like I said, it was almost a year that they thought about this. Gathered stuff, more trucks, more ships, more men, train them, build things. Patton actually had a, this was hilarious. Talk about messing with people's heads. Patton had a fake division. They built inflatable tanks. They were balloons, basically. They were big. You know, like you got your thing in your yard. You know, when you're doing a holiday, you blow up Christmas ornaments. These were blow-up tanks. They put them all over the coast of this one area of Great Britain, up towards the north, because that's where they wanted to fool him to think that we were going to take the northern landing route. And then they played back fake radio transmissions. So the Germans on the other side are all like, dee, 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 dee. And they're hearing all this stuff, oh yeah, we're moving this over here, and this is going to be ready for the 7th, and blah, blah, blah. We've got 50,000 men coming in, they're fully trained, and all these landing craft are going to be arriving, and they're buying it. They're buying it, because we sold it well. It was really pretty slickly done. And so now they're really confused. They're thinking most likely that this is correct, and they're going to go on the upper end of the coast. But then they're also saying, it might be down here where we actually did end up going. Sword and Gold and Juno Beach, those are the code names that we gave them. And the landing was actually supposed to go 2 days before, but the weather was terrible. So unfortunately, there was a few things that were actually on the side on the Germans. The weather being one of them. So what was supposed to happen was our bombers were supposed to go across and pretty much pound and flatten anything that they could see, any target of opportunity, because we had no friendlies over there at the time at all. So they're like, anything that moves, kill it, because it's not ours. So they sent bombers over, and we sent a bunch of large ships with large guns and started pounding away on it. Well, of course, as soon as you do that, you've pretty much revealed where you're going to land.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the weather came. The ships couldn't see where the gunfire was landing, so they destroyed some bunkers, but a lot of them no. And we actually didn't realize how heavy some of these bunkers were. They were taking direct hits, and they were still working. And then the planes, because they couldn't see where they were going, were so afraid of hitting guys that were getting ready to land on the beach that they dropped all their bombs inland. So that didn't really work either. So here we have all these men getting ready to go. and these are crazy numbers. We had 6,939 ships, 2,395 aircraft, and 867 gliders. They actually used gliders. They would pull them with like a C-47 or something, and they put a bunch of guys in there, and it was a big airplane, no engines. They're quiet, they're easier to build, but they didn't fly very well. By the time we launched that day, we had 1,527,000 American troops in the UK. I don't know if you've ever seen a map or photos of Great Britain. It's not that big. You send 1.5 million Americans into there, that's going to make a mess. They were very disturbed about all of this because they weren't used to having that much company. From what I was able to find out, 4,400 Allied soldiers died storming the beach on D-Day. I actually thought the number would have been quite a bit higher, honestly. Now that's dead. That didn't count wounded. So you know that's going to be pretty high as well. But still, 4,400 people made that ultimate sacrifice. So let me try to pull this around and tie it into something biblical, right? So I did some searches on that. The word fort in the Bible, in the King James Version, occurs only 6 times. Fortress shows up 15 times. Wall shows up 163 times. Now I don't know why it didn't sort between the two. It was kind of weird, my search engine. Walls with an S was 63 times. Gate appeared 220 times. And gates, plural, 132. So you add those together. Gate or gates shows up 352 times in our scripture, in the King James Version. It says this in Jeremiah: "Declare this in the house of Jacob and publish it in Judah, saying, Hear now this, O foolish people, and without understanding, which have eyes and see not, which have ears and hear not. Fear ye not me, said the Lord. Will ye not tremble at my presence, which have placed the sand for the bound of the sea, by a perpetual decree that it cannot pass, and through the waves thereof toss themselves. Yet can they not prevail, though they roar, yet can they not pass over it." The sand for the bound of the sea. We had one side on the English Channel. We had the other side on the English Channel. And we had the tossed waves in between. The weather was very rough. What made it worse for these poor souls that were getting ready to land was that some of them had actually been on a ship for over a day because they were getting ready to go, and the weather just wasn't cooperating. And they're like, okay, we take them off, and then we have to try to load them again. So the commanding officer said, no, leave them on there. So a lot of people were already seasick. They're puking their guts out, and they're terrified, as yes, they should be, because they know the Germans are going to be shooting at them. So imagine what you'd be feeling like. You know? And most of these people were not folk who had been around for a while, had never been to war before. Unfortunately, most wars are fought by kids. Really.
Just out of high school.
They're just out of high school, if they even finished high school. You know, a lot of them were farmers. They probably got, 6th, 7th, 8th grade education. That was enough. Dad says it's time to drive a tractor. I need help. This world that we have now looks way different than what they were used to. A lot of them were from the middle of our country. Iowa, Kansas, the Great Plains, they were farmers. Other than knowing not to shoot your foot off, they really didn't know a whole lot about which end of a gun was which. This wasn't their job. They weren't killers. They were plowmen. And the other one was that a lot of people came from the coast cities as well. We had a lot of combat troops come from New York. We were playing Private Ryan this morning. Now, yeah, I get that this is a fictional movie, but I was also told that the D-Day landing scenes were done as accurately as possible, and a lot of veterans said, yeah, it was, some people actually were watching, had to stand up and leave the theater, I understood, when it was playing in the theater, because it was so disturbing and graphic that they were getting flashbacks. They're like, yeah, it was like that. It was just like that. They said if you ramped that up about 2 times, it would have been pretty much like what was going on. But I guess Spielberg probably couldn't go that far, because having people actually, hurling in your theater is not so good. So
Yeah.
he had to dial it back a little bit, but you're getting the idea. So we went over the weekend up to Reading, Pennsylvania, to go see the World War II air show. They had a functional flying B-17 there, a functional flying B-29, a bunch of smaller stuff, Corsairs. They had a couple of Japanese aircraft. Well, we decided to stay over Friday night, 'cause it's a 2.5-hour drive, and then, oh my gosh, was it hot. And then 2.5 hours back, and Karen goes, why don't we just drive up Friday night and get a hotel room? And first I'm thinking, I'm thinking about the money. I'm being practical here, right? I'm going, I don't know. And she goes, come on, let's just do it. Like, okay, fine, we do. So in the morning, they gave me a free breakfast. And I'm sitting there, and there's a guy across the way from me with a hat. And I stand up so I can get a closer look at it. World War II veteran. I was like, holy smoke. So just as I was going up to this guy, he started to turn away and go out the door, and I guess his hearing's not great, and his wife had to call like 5 times. Frank, he's talking to you. Oh. And he turned around, and I thanked him for his service, and he said, yeah, I was in the Pacific. I saw things nobody should see. And his wife said something about like whatever, and I said, oh, we're up here for the air show. Are you going to see that? She said, no, I didn't even know the air show was running today. We're up here because it's my 90th birthday. Wow. She didn't say how old her husband was, but he had to be at least in his mid-90s to be a veteran of that age, right, of that period. And she said he still has nightmares. He doesn't talk about it. Doesn't. So think about that. He was, what, 18, 19 years old? He's in his mid-90s, and he can't get this out of his head. He probably will not shake that until he departs our earth.
That's right.
Those folks saw things nobody should ever see, and had to do things nobody should ever have to do.
Yeah. My father was like that too. He would try to dig holes in the bed.
Foxholes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So while we were there, we had a little conversation with one of the guys who was standing right in front of us watching the planes. And I was looking at the different planes. I said, if that had been me, I would have volunteered for close air support. Republic P-47, Thunderbolt. He said, yeah, why would you do that? And I said, well, because you can see the guys that you're helping. You're so low to the ground. That's why they call it CAS. You are close air support. If you were any closer, you could get out of the plane because you'd already landed. I mean, they're like, 50, 100 feet off the ground, shooting up targets that are enemies to keep them off your guys. And I said, that's where I would have wanted to have been, because I know that I was making a difference, helping those guys right there. They see you swing past, and they're taking, 105 millimeter fire or whatever, and you lay into that gun emplacement and it stops firing because you killed everybody. Now those guys are safe. He said, it was like a 5-to-1 ratio. The guys that were CAS dying in combat over the guys that were flying planes higher, because you were right there and they were shooting at you with their rifles and hit you. You were that low. I said, yeah, I knew that. I said, I still would have done it. Would have been worth it. They needed that help. So, Daniel 11 says this, and a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. Who ended up running Germany and Japan after the war? We did. Now, we could have said, and this is what usually happens in most conflicts, if you look back all through history, the guy who wins basically keeps what he won. You know, he said, I'm sorry, too bad, you lost, like when Babylon got overrun by the Medo-Persians, who had Israel in captivity. So now the slaves became the slaves of the slaves, and the Medo-Persians were in charge. But we turned around, and instead of keeping them under the heel, which we could have, we had the right to do that, we said, no, we're not conquering empire builders. We're going to help you rebuild your countries, and we are going to pay for it. Never anywhere in history have I found that that ever happened before. The Persian king helped out a little. I don't remember which one of the prophets it was off the top of my head, sorry. But anyway, when he made the decree, he said, you can go back and rebuild the walls and gates of Jerusalem, and I'm going to provide materials and funds for that. So he did that on a small scale. But he didn't pay for the rebuilding of an entire country. With the Marshall Plan, we did. Germany and Japan would look way different today if we hadn't done that. So look what he's saying, that your kingdom's plucked up, even for others beside those. Hitler's gone. Emperor Hirohito's gone. Tojo's gone. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. She shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. We came out of the root of Great Britain, right? We had 2 wars with them, actually, if you remember that. The second one wasn't, really so published. Everybody knows about Paul Revere and all of that stuff, but they came back again in 1812 and had another go at it, which they lost again. This time we didn't really need help. The French helped us the first time. The second time we were strong enough to fight them off, because we were developing into that country that we became, at least for a period of time anyway. But the point of that is that after we beat them twice, we realized, hey, we all started out originally, except for people that they came in as immigrants, we all started out as Englishmen. We're actually 2 countries, but really one thought, one people. Of course, they mock us for butchering the King's English, and we mock them for, hey, speaking very funny. So, we can always have some humor with that, but they've been our best ally. And they were in need twice. World War I, World War II. So the branch that was broken off, us, became later on the hand, the arm, the army, the salvation of the original motherland. Was all of that accidental? Like I've said many, many times before, do we want a God that gets surprised? No. Does he know everything or does he not? Right? If there's one thing that he doesn't know, then he doesn't know everything. It's an on-off switch. It's either a 1 or a 0 in binary, right?
Right.
It's either he is omnipotent, omniscient, or he isn't. So him looking the corridor of time that just blows our minds, that everything, the past, the present, and what we call the future, is already all the same to him, because he's outside of all of time. Right? It's like if we had multiple TV screens and we were watching a movie, we were watching the front, the first quarter, the second quarter, and the end of the movie all at the same time on 4 different TVs. And like, oh wow, that's what happened at the end? Ooh, wow, but wait, we're still over here. We're only 27 minutes into the movie. That's like what our reality looks like to him. He sees it all at once, which we can't comprehend. It's crazy because we're linear. We're stuck in that time. We don't know what's going to happen. Okay? We don't know what's going to happen 2 minutes from now, 5 minutes from now, tomorrow morning, a week, a decade, a millennium. Right? But every conflict we've had in human history, you already saw all those. Every good thing we've ever done in human history, saw all those too. So none of this is a surprise. Peter wrote in his first letter, in chapter 5, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. Be sober and be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeing whom he may devour. Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But the grace of all God, who hath called us unto all his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen." Sober, vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about. Doesn't say that he's doing nothing. Doesn't say he's waiting for God to take a vacation to Tahiti because it's a magical place. It's an inside joke. It doesn't say that it's going to be a long weekend, so he's going to sleep in. Like what happened with Elijah and the prophets. Oh, peradventure your God is on vacation. Oh, perhaps he's sleeping. Right? And it was with the 450, right? 450 prophets of Baal. Yeah, they're beating each other and themselves, whipping and yelling and crying and cutting and dancing and screaming and, oh, Baal, do something. Baal, do something. We're looking like idiots down here. Yes, you are. Because you're serving an invented God. Your God doesn't exist other than in your head.
Yeah, I want to bring up a point. You know, when you were speaking about the adversary, the devil, how that he is going before God, accusing the brother day and night. So it's a day and night thing that he's communicating with God.
Yeah.
I mean, wanting to, you know, like he wanted Peter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He's talking
To
to
sift
God
his wheat, yes.
and giving permission to do these things.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Day and night.
Yeah, Elder kind of, got into my notes. No, that's okay. That's okay. See that? Great minds here, right? Yeah, he was saying that, notice that we all have to sleep. And actually, science really right now cannot explain 100% why we sleep. Some animals don't. Some fish, they just go about. They do not have to sleep, but we do. Why? Right? But as he was saying, God don't sleep. Angels don't have to sleep. They've got a completely different thing going on. They don't age. They don't die. And since Lucifer used to be one of the angels, well, he doesn't sleep either. So he's always on his job, isn't he?
Yes.
Right? He doesn't take a vacation at Tahiti either. You'll have to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to get that joke. It's an inside joke. But anyway, he's not in Tahiti and neither is God. They are here looking to beat us up 24/7. Every single second, every single day, they're on the job. One of them's helping us, one of them's wanting to hurt us. And it just goes round and round and round. So God's been on the one side ever since he created the universe. Lucifer's been on the other side ever since he decided he could run things better. Said, I'm going to exalt my throne above the one that created the universe. Bad move.
Very good.
See, even back then, there was a war. Does it not say in Revelation there was a war in heaven?
That's right.
Right? It said the evil side and their angels fought. And then there was God's force, his angels fought. Right? Michael, yeah, Michael the archangel, yeah. He gave him a mighty weapon, a powerful sword.
Yeah.
So, us having fights down here, not that they're great, and of course we all really wish that they would stop because then people would quit dying over dumb things, but there's a precedent even in the sky that happened, even before we were around, to start doing dumb things to each other. So unfortunately, conflict is just kind of almost an intrinsic piece of the whole universe. It's built in, baked into the part of that creation, isn't it? And like I said, he's going around. He's not sleeping. He's not slacking. He's not going, yeah, you know what? I think I beat that guy up enough. I'm going to leave him alone for a little while. Did he leave Job alone?
Well, eventually.
Well, yeah, eventually, yes. Because his permissions got revoked.
Permits expired.
Yeah, he went to the server, went into Active Directory, said permission revoked. He took that out of his account. Anybody in IT will get that joke. But yeah, before that, right? So, you know, it says he was bouncing around, going place to place. And, well, it's not like God didn't know where he was. He said, hey, you, where you been? Oh, I've been going around the earth, looking for people to stomp. He said, have you considered my servant Job? He's like, oh, Job, huh? Okay, keep talking. All right. I'm like, yeah, have you considered my servant Job? It's an upright man. He's like, oh yeah, really? How about if I mess with him? Let's see how upright he really is. God says, all right, I think I'll allow you to do that because you're whining about him having a hedge. Right? He's got a wall around him, a fortress of protection. Yeah. How about if I let you kick in that gate and you go mess with him for a while? Yeah, and Satan goes, sure, challenge accepted, hold my beer. So we know the story, he does. Actually, he goes after him twice, right? He came back and he said, look, I still didn't manage to break the guy. He goes, okay, well, you know what? We'll step up the bet here, but you can't kill him. I'm going to draw a line. You cannot kill him. But you can mess with him otherwise. And what did he do? You remember that? He gave him what? All kinds of horrible stuff all over his body, right? Boils. And it said that he took a busted piece of pottery and was scraping these lesions on his skin. And he did get a little off course, right? You know, he did start yelling about the day he was born, and then God set him down a little bit. He said, you know, what were you doing when I was creating the universe? Did you assist on that project? I don't remember you being a foreman on that construction gang. No, I wasn't born yet. Oh, how about that? Okay, well, were you involved in thinking about having you be born then, when I was thinking about creating you? No, I wasn't there either. So he got a minor smackdown, didn't he? But he never, it says, never charged God foolishly. He whined, but he didn't say, you know, God, you know, beep, 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 son of beep, beep, you know, I can't believe you're doing this to me, beep, beep, right? You know, you're like one of those petty gods that takes a big magnifying glass, burns the legs off ants. He was smart enough not to go that far. And he said, all right, you know, this is going to endure for a while. And we don't even actually know how long that was. But we do know that at the end of that, well, oh yeah, his wife said, curse God and die, right? He got double, like some pastors like to say, double for his trouble. He was restored not to what he had, but he was restored to more. Now, we don't know if it was the same wife or not. You know, that's a whole other question. Because I don't think she was in his great graces at that point. But you see, the whole moral The whole point of that story is that neither of them were sleeping. He came around, he says, have you considered my guy Job over here? And he's like, oh yeah, I know Job. Oh, well that means he was watching him before. He tried to have a go at him, and he's like, oh, it's got an impenetrable wall. Man. All right, God, take the wall down. We'll see. Well, how would he have known that wall was there if he hadn't had a look before? Recon. Right? Recon. Check out the land before you get there. They send the spies out, right? What was the recon on the spies? They came back and they said, oh, this is never going to work. Right? Didn't all of them bring back a bad report? They said the people are like, 28 feet high, they're all giants. We're, what did they say, grasshoppers, I think, right? And they say we're grasshoppers in their sight, we're going to get smashed. We're going to look like all of these dead cicadas. They're going to all over the sidewalk when we get stepped on. But then 2 of them came back and said, listen to them tackheads over there. We got this. We can take these boys. Yeah, they're big, but you know what? The bigger they are, the harder they fall over. We're going to take these guys, and the graves are like this, right? Didn't it say that there was 2 guys, right, who were carrying on their shoulder, right, a cluster. That thing had to be pretty heavy if you needed 2 dudes and they had to sling it over like a, like a carry pole here. Recon. Psalms 18 says, therefore hath the Lord recompensed me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his eyesight. With the merciful thou wilt show thyself merciful. With an upright man thou wilt show thyself upright. With the pure thou wilt show thyself pure, and with the froward thou wilt show thyself froward. Those are the people that are messing up. For thou wilt save the afflicted people, but while bring down high looks, thou wilt light my candle. The Lord my God will enlighten my darkness. For by thee I have run through a troop, and by my God have I leaped over a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. He is a buckler to all those that trust in him. Who is God save the Lord? Or who is a rock save our God? It is God that girdeth me with strength, and maketh my way perfect. He maketh my feet like hinds' feet, and setteth me upon my high places. Watch this. He teacheth my hands to war. A bow of steel is broken by my arms. Thou hast also given me the shield of thy salvation, and thy right hand hath holden me up, and thy gentleness hath made me great. Thou hast enlarged my steps under me, that my feet did not slip. Well, he teach my hands to war, and I break a bow of steel. Well, if we're supposed to go assault the gates of hell, like these guys did on the 6th of June, they didn't go in there with harsher language, did they? No. They went in there with aircraft, they went in there with artillery, they went in there with hand weapons, they went in there with these things that were called Bangalore torpedoes. They were big long straws that explode when you pull a fuse to blow little pieces of like barbed wire or whatever if you got something in your way, a wall. Demolitions. We didn't send those guys over and go, yeah, yell harsh language at the Germans, that'll work. We trained them and we armed them. He's training us and arming us. He said right here. Right here in Psalms it says that, does it not? I have pursued my enemies and overtaken them, neither did I turn again till they were consumed. I have wounded them that were not able to rise, they're fallen under my feet. Thou hast girded me with strength unto the battle. Thou hast subdued me unto those that rose up against me. Thou hast also given me the necks of my enemies, that I might destroy them that hate me. The Nazis didn't like us much, did they? They cried, but there was none to save them, even unto the Lord, but he answered them not. Then did I beat them small as the dust before the wind. I did cast them out as the dirt in the streets. Anybody ever see any pictures of what Germany looked like after we were done? There were a few cities that were relatively untouched. Most of them were complete rubble. That's what they called strategic bombing. You picked up anything that you could see that looked like a good target and you plastered it. Towards the end of the war, the Air Force was starting to complain we're running out of targets. We've got all these bombs left and we've blown up everything that mattered. When are these guys going to finally surrender? Don't they know they're beaten? And yet they tried to continue. And in my closing, Psalm 91:1. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His trust shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. So like I said, this was fought mostly by kids. Seriously. They were probably barely 18. And like I said, most of them had probably never held a rifle, other than maybe if they were on a farm, they might have had, maybe an old bolt action or a 22 for, picking off pests or whatever, but they weren't shooting at people. And here we're loading thousands of these kids into ships and telling them, you got to go climb that hill over there and kill anything that moves. And they're going to be doing the same to you. And they were kids too. The German army was in really bad shape by then. They were pretty much recruiting anybody they could get. So some of them were crack troops, but some of them were old guys. Some of them were kids, if they were old enough to hold a rifle. They just basically point it in that direction, and anything that moves that doesn't look like us, shoot it. Those kids didn't want to be over there on either side. They wanted to be home. They wanted to be running a farm. They wanted to be with their parents. They weren't looking to be killers. But history pushed them into it. Didn't give them any choice.
Thank God they were.
So, did some people probably run? Were there cowards that popped up? Sure. Because just like any other situation, you don't know what you're going to do. Some people can say that they're not afraid at all, and they'll be the first one to run. Other ones say they're terrified, and they still keep going anyway. Because that's what true heroism is. You're afraid, but you do it anyway. So, were there mistakes? Yeah, absolutely. Was there unbelievable heroism? Yeah, sure. Probably on both sides. Not glorifying, like I said, anything that the Nazis were doing, but most of those people that were there that were fighting didn't agree, really, for the most part, with what was going on. They weren't card-carrying, dyed-in-the-wool Nazis. They were kids that didn't want to be there and didn't want to die. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. That's something I'd kind of always wondered about too. In anything like this. Okay, even like, say something right across the street, right? Somebody gets in a car wreck. There's multiple people in the vehicle. 2 people die and 3 don't. Why? Or when they were getting to the shore, they had these special craft with a big ramp in the front. It's called a Higgins boat. They would drop that ramp and run onto the dirt. Some of the boats, everybody inside got machine gunned before they were even able to get off the ramp. But then some of the boats didn't get touched. So you're scratching your head going, why did this guy die and this guy get out without even a mark? How's that make any sense? Right? What made that bullet take that one trajectory and that guy dies? There's no way for us to answer any of this. It's all in God's hand. It was those people's times. Now, I was in a pretty bad car wreck in 2006. I've seen cars that were in less bad condition and people died. Now, I'm not saying that I walked away without a scratch. I did, and I feel it every day. But I'm still here because he wasn't done with me yet. He wanted me to be here today to deliver this message to you. So he said, you know what? I'm not going to kill him yet. I'll take him later. Whenever that is. I don't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. They don't know. Nobody knows the day or the hour.
No.
When shalt thou establish thy kingdom? I'm not even going to tell you. And that was his disciples asking the question, and he's still blowing them off. Or delaying them, maybe I should say. Because those aren't things that we're supposed to know. So, let me just reiterate on this one, and then my final thought. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. He shall give his angels charge over thee, keep thee in all thy ways. And his angels do that. They watch over us and protect us as long as we are following him. Amen.
Wonderful lesson.
Sister Christ, amen. Amen. We want to take a